All right, Victor Antonio live here. I'll wait for a few folks to jump on before I get into the topic of the day. So again, I'll wait for a few folks to jump on before I get going here. Thought I'd launch sales afternoon. Anytime after midday, just jump on and see what's what. So again, I'll just wait for a couple of people to jump on before I get into the content. Super excited about this. Leave me some feedback here on, in terms of sales, how's it going? How are we doing this year? It's August, moving into September, so again, the year's going by rather quickly. So it's amazing how time flies, man. And so, all right, got somebody in here, cool. Thumbs up back at you. Again, I'll wait for a couple of people to jump in, and then I will, let me see if I can track the activity here. And again, leave me a comment, give me some feedback, just say hi, what's up, all that good stuff. And let me see what I got here. I got some moving the cameras around here on my screen. I'm messing around with a lot of stuff over here. And so let's see. All right, like I said, leave me some feedback. Just say hi. Greetings from Trinidad, Tobago, man. Glad to have you on board. This is going to be a quick one. It'll be about 15 minutes. We'll get into this. It'll be about 15 minutes. I'm not going to wait 15 minutes. I'll give it a couple of more minutes. It's 12:31 right now. Just give it a few more minutes. And then, let me see, Cast Ahead is here. There he is. Chris Stone, Sales Afternoon, my man. Hi from the Philippines. Charles, were you at the event I did in the Philippines, Charles? That was pretty cool. I was up in, did Manila and also went over to Cebu and did a couple of presentations there. So it was a great event. Manila, got to try some cool food, some interesting food over there. So it was fascinating. So yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm going to do, let me just jump into this presentation. I had this conversation on presentation styles and presentation skills. For some of you who know this, I know Chris over at Cast Ahead knows this. I did the closing keynote for the National Speakers Association this year, 50th anniversary, did the closing presentation on the second day. Questions I get when I do my presentations are often is like, how is it that you keep audiences so engaged? Like, how do you just hold them, especially for 45 minutes for an hour? By the way, they gave me the 5 p.m. slot. The event was over at 6 p.m. So if you could imagine, there's the crowd, over 1,000 people are sitting there for a whole day. I come up at 5 p.m., they're tired, 1 hour to go, they're thinking about going to get something to eat, something to drink, they just want to leave. So 5 p.m. is always the toughest slot, right, to get in any presentation because the energy level is like, and so the question then becomes is, how do you engage them? Like, how do you keep them in the moment, so to speak? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I do with my presentations. And let me do this instead. It's probably what I wanted. What I want to introduce to you, and again, some of you have seen my past presentations, know what I'm about to present, but it's very powerful. It's called pattern interrupts. Now, let me describe pattern interrupts because if you get them and you understand them and you know how to implement them, you will be a great presenter. So, if you think about the brain is let me see if I can get the marker going here. I don't know if I'd like red. I don't like red here. Let's go with something brighter, more chipper than red, right? So imagine for a moment that's your brain, okay? That's your brain. And if you think about it, most people don't think about it. That's an R. Your brain uses up a lot of energy, right? Now, most people don't know that this represents about 2% of your body weight, but it uses 20% of your energy. Did you ever have those moments where you didn't do anything, you just sat behind a desk and you didn't do anything all day, but at the end of the day, you're like mentally exhausted, right? What happens is all that thinking, whatever's going up here cognitively, this brain is using up a lot of energy. Now, so step one, your brain is an energy hog. It loves to use up energy. So what happens? The brain also has a second mechanism. The brain also likes to focus on what's important, right? Likes to focus on what's important. So for example, have you ever done a presentation and people start looking at their phones, right? Or start doing something else but paying attention to you? What's happened in the moment is that the brain is using up energy But what it's also doing is it's allocating its resources somewhere else. In this case, on the phone, because what the brain says, what I'm listening to is not important. I might as well check my email on my phone, right? So our job is, again, to hold its attention. So again, we're fighting two things. One, the brain uses up a lot of energy. People get tired. Number two, the brain is saying, if that's not important in front of me, I'm going to reallocate my resources to something else. And if you still don't get it, let me give you this visual. Think of a computer, right? Your laptop, right? And what happens after a while when you don't use a laptop? It falls asleep. Why? It's trying to conserve energy. Your brain is no different. When it hears something or sees something that's not important to the brain, self-interest, it says, let me go do something else, or just reduce the amount of energy. In other words, by not paying attention to you, I'll just check my email. That's less energy consumption. That's what'll happen. That's what I'll do. Now, when the computer goes to sleep, it's trying to conserve energy. So how do you wake up a computer? You typically what? You wiggle the mouse, right? Or tickle the pad, right? So keep those two things in mind. Uses energy, and if it's not important, it reallocates its energy somewhere else. Having said that, here's what I've come up with in terms of pattern interrupt. I want you to imagine that this is a presentation you have to do. Now again, this works in one to a crowd, one to one, doesn't matter. You're doing a presentation, right? Now, let's say this is attention, holding their attention over time. Holding their attention over time. Now, is it possible? Is it possible to hold somebody's attention? Let's say we're doing a 60-minute presentation. 60 minutes. Is it possible to hold somebody's attention at 100% for a whole hour? Is that possible? Yes or no in the chat. Is that possible? Is that possible to hold somebody's attention? Could Victor Antonio do it? Could I hold your attention for a whole hour? Could I do it at 100%? Could I do it? How much confidence do you have in me? Give me a yes or no. Why yes and no, right? Could I do it? Could I do it? Vote. Mark Stubson says no. Zero confidence that Victor could do it. Let me see. PWY Lil says no. Apparently there is no vote of confidence for the Victor man. And you are so right that it's really hard. You can't do it. It's hard. No matter how good you are, it's hard to hold somebody's attention for 100%. So here's what you can do. What if, because as soon as you present something, what begins to happen is the brain starts out with high interest, like, let me listen to this new speaker, right? But as soon as, after 100%, let me see if I can go to white here. Let me go to white. It begins to dip. It's just naturally, your attention begins to dip. Now this could be after 3, maybe 5, maybe 7 minutes, right? It begins to dip. So then what you have to do, going back to it, is you have to find a way. Let's assume that this is 80% attention, right? 80% attention. Our job then is to find a way, once it starts dipping, our job is to push it back up. Get their attention all interested again, and then it starts dipping again, push it back up. And it follows this cycle. Now, this right here is called a pattern interrupt. So we have to logically, sequentially insert pattern interrupts throughout the presentation. For example, I can say, let me ask you a question, right? Or to the audience, let me ask you a question. And as soon as I say, let me ask you a question, you can feel the energy go up, like, what's the question? Their attention kicks back up. Again, you start presenting, you do the question, you get the answers, you have discussions, and then you can feel it dipping again. And then you say, well, here, let's do the small exercise. Okay, great. So now I insert an exercise in this as a pattern interrupt, right? We continue, we finish the exercise, I start giving some more explanation, you feel it dipping again, and you say, now, I got something. Watch this video. So now I insert right here another pattern interrupt, which is a video. You get the idea. What happens is, if you plan your 60-minute presentation, if you plan out what your pattern interrupts are, you maintain them, that attention span, within this band. And if you're within this band, that's full engagement, right? Because nobody can keep you at 100%. Hard to do. But they can cycle you through to this 80% band right here. So how do you use this? The next time you're putting together a presentation, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45, 1 hour. And the longer you go, the more pattern interrupts you need. For example, if you do 90 minutes or 2 hours, right? By the way, taking a break when you're doing a 2-hour workshop, if you stop at 60 minutes, that's a pattern interrupt, right? So again, plan these out. What do you do? How do you sequence this throughout your presentation? Now, I don't know the exact timing of when you should insert a pattern interrupt. You have to determine that. Every presentation is different, right? Every presentation is different. So I use the 357 rule, 357. Maybe you can do it every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 7 minutes, and then pick your slot. So then what you do is, if you believe this to be true, then what I typically do is I plan out what are my pattern interrupts. For example, there's questions. See if you have any other pattern interrupts you guys use. You have some exercises. I can show them a video. That's another pattern interrupt. By the way, I can also show them a picture. That's another pattern interrupt. I can show them how about a case study, right? I can show them a case study. That's another pattern interrupt. I could show them some data. That's another pattern interrupt. So again, I can really sequence a good presentation, keep them active up here in this range, full attention, if I actually plan out what pattern interrupts I'm going to use during my presentation. And when you can do that, you become a much more effective presenter because you simply know how to interrupt the pattern. And again, every time you're interrupting the pattern, you're re-engaging the audience. And that's what I had for today. Any questions? It's going to be a short one, by the way. Any questions? Like, what do you guys do? You know, when you want to interrupt or keep somebody engaged, what do you guys typically do? Would love to hear your feedback. Like I said, we got pictures. Did I miss something? I got data. Again, case studies, videos, pictures, exercise, questions. I'm trying to think of something else, and I can't right now, but I think these are the general pattern interrupts that I would typically use in a presentation. By the way, a story, right? A story is definitely a pattern interrupt, right? And then it could be a humorous story, a little humor, a joke, whatever it may be. That could be a pattern interrupt as well. So again, the next time you're doing a presentation, whether it's, again, to a general crowd, maybe it's an investor, right? Even if you're talking to investors, you're pitching, I don't know, some angel investor, some private equity company, you're pitching, keep in mind that you still have to play by the rules here. In other words, you have to keep them engaged. You know, tell them what you're going to do, what product you're building, why they deserve to invest in your company, so forth and so on. So somebody said humor, call someone, cast ahead, which is Chris says, call someone out in an audience, ask them something specifically, i.e. Marcus Sheridan. So Marcus Sheridan is a great presenter, does this exceptionally well. Marcus Sheridan does two things. One is what Chris already mentioned. He actually goes out into the audience, right? He goes out into the audience, and as soon as he comes out into the audience, people just perk up. It works all the time, by the way. As soon as you walk down the row, you know, amongst the crowd, so to speak, people just generally kind of, you know, pay more attention because like, uh-oh, this person's coming my way. And then what he does, he asks a question right in the crowd. And then he kind of does this whole improvisation thing where he has conversations with people in the audience and everybody's watching and paying attention because something is happening. The speaker got off the platform, came down into the audience, is now asking questions. Great way to engage an audience. All right, humor, you're absolutely right. Again, we talked about that. Anything else before I sign off? And I think not. On that note, I'll let you guys go. Like I said, I'll try to do a couple of these a week. I'm not going to plan any right now as far as, you know, put out a schedule, but I'll just try to drop these. And you can also watch these on YouTube again on my YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/sales influence, you should be able to see this stream again. Or if you're on LinkedIn or I think Twitter right now, you should be able to see the stream again if you want to see it. On that note, I am out of here. Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.